Hi everyone, my name is Amber and this is my review of Malorie by Josh Malerman. I read Bird Box before the Netflix film came out a couple of years ago and it succeeded in utterly terrifying me. I had absolutely no idea Josh Malerman was going to come out with a follow-up, and so when I saw it on NetGalley I had to get it. At the same time I also wasn't entirely sure whether Bird Box needed a sequel. This book piqued my curiosity in that way as well. So in this video I'm going to be summarising the book quickly without spoilers. I'm going to be sharing my thoughts and opinions on the book, and I'm going to be discussing whether or not I think Bird Box needed a sequel. Malorie is coming out in July 2020, by the way. A quick summary of the book in case you need one. Malorie is set several years after Bird Box. The home for the blind has fallen to these creatures. Malorie is now living with her teenage children in an abandoned camp. You'd think they'd be safe, but word of Malorie's parents being alive reaches them, and this makes the three of them set out across the country. It's a very short book. It's just over 250 pages, I think, so I have to be quite careful about what I say, otherwise I'm going to cover the entire book and there'll be literally no point in you reading it. So I'm just going to leave the summary there. Now, as for my own thoughts on the book, I'm just going to come out and say it right now. I don't think Bird Box needed a sequel. I think that Bird Box ended so well with the hope that Malorie and her kids actually had a future ahead of them, while also keeping the entire mystery of the creatures intact, because that was the kind of gripping point of Bird Box for me. I really enjoyed the fact that we didn't know what these creatures were, or how they preyed, or if they preyed on humans, and why they were sending people mad. Malorie, the book, felt entirely unnecessary. To me, it seems as though Josh Malerman scrambled something together in order to try to tie up every single loose end from the first book, while also presumably trying to profit from the mild success of the Netflix film. I really don't think Josh Malerman had much more story to tell, and the rushed plot and the hazy character development really showed that. So like I said, this is a very short book. It's under 300 pages and there was only so much he could do in that time. We follow Malorie and her kids as they set out to find Malorie's parents, and in order to do that they have to go across the country, or the state rather, blindfolded, and they have to get the blind train, which is a train on which will help them like fast travel from place to place. They hear word of a community that is trying to find ways to fight the creatures, or to be able to see the creatures without turning mad. And that is literally all of the plot. There's not really much more for me to tell you. It felt very basic and underdeveloped, and like I said, very rushed. I also mentioned the character development. So to touch upon that quickly, despite being the title character, I don't think this book did Malorie justice at all. Instead of really deep diving into her character and into her possible PTSD and mental health issues, which she undoubtedly has due to having to live with these creatures in such a way, I really feel as though Josh Malerman portrayed her as paranoid and an overly cautious woman that other characters laughed at and didn't take seriously at all, even though there is this massive threat outside that she was trying to protect her children from. And I feel like the way that that was portrayed was that everyone thought she was nuts. And it's a shame, because I feel like Josh Malerman really had the opportunity here to dive deep into her character, figure out how these circumstances were affecting her and affecting her children. And I'm sure a lot of people now can mildly understand, because during our own pandemic we're unable to go outside for long periods of time. We're not able to interact with people, and Malorie has that tenfold because she has to go outside blindfolded. She's not seen the outside in absolute years, and she doesn't have much human interaction other than that of her children. So I really feel like Josh Malerman could have developed that further, really looked into it, but instead he made her sound like she was the crazy woman down the street who refuses to leave her house and like bangs on windows and throws rocks at neighbours. I think that's really where this book fell for me, because in the first book Malorie was obviously my favourite character. She was the main character, and I really enjoyed seeing her journey, going from a young woman who wanted her sister and her parents to be alive to being a survivor who had to do some brutal things in order to protect her children. And she was all about protecting her children, and she still is in this one, except I really don't think Josh Malerman portrayed that in a positive light, and that really frustrated me. This book was nowhere near as creepy as Bird Box was. I think that Bird Box really achieved the creepiness and atmosphere that Josh Malerman was going for. The state of the world and the creatures themselves were so mysterious and vague, you had no idea what they were, and nor did the characters, because they could not look at them. But in Malorie I think that completely fell apart because Josh Malerman tried to explain too much. I think in Malorie there was barely any tension bar a few scenes, mostly being on the blind train, whereas the whole of Bird Box was just tension and psychological horror, because these characters could not go outside and they didn't know what was coming for them. I really think that Bird Box should have been left alone, because by trying to explain these creatures further, Josh Malerman took away any mystery or intrigue that surrounded them, and I think a lot of readers might be disappointed with this one, although the Goodreads reviews are actually very positive for it, so maybe I'm the outlier here and I'm the only one who wanted it to be left alone. I get the impression that Josh Malerman only wrote this to profit from the Netflix film, and also perhaps in the hope that this book also would be adapted into a movie sequel, which is a shame because I don't think he wrote Bird Box that way at all. It's always a shame when authors kind of, I don't know, sell out and let their fans down, and I really think that this book could have been better, but I feel like it was too rushed to do anything substantial. Maybe if Josh Malerman had taken more time on it between the movie and the book, or maybe if he had had actual ideas for Malorie the character, but I really don't like the way that he portrayed her and the way that he wrote her children either, because they clearly didn't respect their mother all that much. And I get it, they're teenagers and they're in the kind of rebelling stage and they're ready to move on with their lives, but at the same time I think he could have said that in the book rather than leaving it to the reader to determine whether or not they were right to feel that way about their mother. So overall, Malorie was quite a disappointing read. I'm quite sad that Josh Malerman did this to such a strong character, because Malorie was really strong in the first book, and in this one she's kind of belittled and degraded and told that she's wrong about everything. Going by the ending of this one, I really don't think that Josh Malerman could turn this into a trilogy, and I'm sort of scared that he will regardless because of what happened with this one. I really wouldn't recommend reading this. I would say stick with Bird Box being a standalone, because that's, I think, how it is strongest, and I don't think you really need to know more about the creatures because that takes away from the intrigue, like I said, from Bird Box, and it takes away all the tension if you were to reread it. It's a shame, but what can you do? Thank you all so much for watching my video. Let me know your thoughts on Bird Box and or Malorie in the comments below, and I'll speak to you all in my next video. Bye.